All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Fitness Inside Out by Wild Training. I'm James Griffiths, and today I've got some of our members from the Wild Training gym, and these guys have joined the gym this year in 2021. And as lots of young men at the age of kind of 15, 16 start to find the weights for the first time and start getting interested in strength training. And at the Wild Training gym, we're going to be starting a family series of kind of educational seminars, webinars for lots of people to benefit from, hopefully, and for us to kind of create a better culture within the local community and families that want to have a better opportunity to build a really healthy, fit family kind of thing and have fun while they're doing it. But I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk to the lads because I guess when I was 16, nobody told me what I was doing. And I'm sure most guys can relate to the idea of coming to that age where you do want to build on some muscle, you want to get a little bit stronger. And back in the day, the best I had was men's fitness, as most guys would have got used to doing 3 sets of 10 pretty quickly as that programming really built around those kind of basic compound strength systems. But I thought, we've got a lot more channels now for education, from YouTube and podcasts and all kinds of websites and obviously Instagram, social medias, where I'm sure these guys have probably learned a few hints and tricks. And so I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about, firstly, why they started getting into exercise, what it was to really get them going, because as we've always found at the Wild Training gym, hardest thing about exercise is getting people started. Like, we're really good at keeping people engaged in effective exercise, seeing results, and obviously making sure they never get bored and don't get injured. But getting people started is tricky. So I'm always interested to talk to people about why they start their exercise routine. And then I'm really interested to hear about, where these guys learned about what strength exercises they want to do, what exercises they don't want to do, what supplements they think are important, because I know that's a hot topic for a lot of people that are getting into strength training for sure. And really then for me to kind of, I guess, open it up to the guys as a bit of a coaching session where they can just ask me questions, because I know there's a lot of kind of misinformation out there and a lot of things that feel like they conflict, so information about training and nutrition that I'm sure becomes very confusing the more you read. So this is going to be a really fun podcast, hopefully, and hopefully something that a lot of people get a lot of value from. So we have Ben, Connor, and Josh. Okay. And so let's dive straight in, guys. So we've had a chat, before we hit record, about you guys doing what every guy I know did, which was join the local leisure centre and start throwing around some tin, pretty much.
Yeah, 100%.
And so talk to me about, you guys all started at the kind of leisure centre together.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Mm-hmm. And so what happened when you joined? Did you get shown what you were doing?
No, so they ran us through a quick kind of session of what a few of the pieces of equipment were, but that was more of an optional kind of thing.
Yep.
So you basically just left there and you just go into the gym. They got certain hours. You're not really allowed to use the free weights until you're at a certain age. But
did they tell you why?
No specific reasons as why. But so basically you kind of had to figure it all out by yourself. And obviously, being new to the gym, we had no clue what we were doing. Yeah. So just do random exercises, random sets. Yeah. Had no clue what we were doing. And
that would be kind of you guys jumping on like fixed path resistance machines. So the kind of things you would put like the pins in or like slide weights onto. So the thing about obviously fixed path resistance machines is you almost can't do them wrong, right? And I think that's where, we saw from a business model point of view, late 90s, when treadmills, cross trainers first kind of came to be and all this fixed path resistance machinery kind of hit the gyms with selectorized kind of weights and kind of, setups that were obviously much easier to kind of manage. It was great for the gyms, I think, from a business point of view, because they got like thousands of members, but they didn't need an army of instructors to teach anybody how to do anything anymore. So they could literally go, join the gym and crack on, because you probably won't die, And the interesting thing that I always think about is financially, the fitness industry grows like every year, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But for 15 or 20 years now, we've always been at about 13 to 15% of the UK population has had a gym membership. So it hasn't moved from 15% for quite a long years. So you're like, okay, so the amount of people in fitness, in gyms, hasn't necessarily changed that much, but the fitness industry keeps making more money. And so it's kind of, in my head, our success arguably isn't related to you guys actually getting the results you want, which sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
So So yeah, it's interesting. And then so you go to the gym, you find these fixed buffer resistance machines, because at this point nobody's really interested in going on a treadmill.
No.
Which is what they tell you you're allowed to do.
Yeah.
And so what do you do? So how many reps, how many sets would you normally guys knock out?
Realistically, I would go to the gym. I'd pick up, let's say, a 12 kilo dumbbell, and I'd rep it out for 8 reps, and then I'd put it back, and I'd go find something else to do. I wouldn't think about sets. I'll just do one thing, move to the other thing.
Yeah, totally. Okay. And in terms of like so Ben, your weekly routine, Monday to Sunday, what does it look like?
So most of the time I come to the gym, let's say 5 or 6 times a week. Monday would be a chest and back session, Tuesday arms, Wednesday legs and shoulders, and then repeat.
Yeah, okay. Wicked. And so you know, I guess fundamentally in my head it's like really interesting, because those kind of split routines, right? So where we're going, you know, sometimes it'll be chest and back, and then obviously, you know, as Ben said, like arms and abs, and then your legs, because obviously legs are a monster, so they normally knock you out a little bit more, so you leave them alone. But there's lots of different kind of popular split routines. So for example, mine's probably a little bit simpler, you know. So when I'm going through more hypertrophy bodybuilding phases, I just have push, pull, and then my legs. And for me, it's a simple way for me to manage it. There's justification for mixing them up as well. So when you go, if I do my chest on Monday with my biceps, and then say I do my back on Friday with my triceps, then obviously a lot of your back pulling exercises are going to work your biceps. So if we worked our biceps in isolation on Monday, and then we work our back on Friday, you kind of end up working your biceps twice. And there's no right or wrongs. And that's the thing. Like when you're trying to create split routines, there are very passionate coaches that will tell you there's a right and a wrong way to do it, but there isn't, you know. And especially when you're starting out, the sweet thing about when you're starting out is everything works, because you're not used to it, right? And, you know, your bodies will adapt ridiculously quickly. So it's a really exciting time. But then, so for you, Josh, I guess, what made you guys join the gym? Like, what was it that all of a sudden you were like, yep, we're going to join?
Well, to be honest, I was always quite like tall.
I
was always quite thin, so I was like, you know what, I want to put on some muscle. I want to do this. But so I went to the gym. But when I got to the gym, you know, I obviously didn't, as you said, you don't know what you're doing. So I'd pick up a dumbbell, or like just go on like the cables, do some like cable machine workouts or something. And then that'd be about it. Like, I wouldn't know anything about food, nutrition, like
fueling
sleep.
the workout.
Until I started asking like different like people at the gym, like, what do you recommend? Like, so I see these big guys in like Wickham, and they just say, oh, do this. So I'd be like, oh, well, I'll do this then. But eventually, you know, you kind of just work it out by yourself, and eventually you know what you're doing. But
Totally. Okay, and so obviously you've got, you know, the bigger, fitter guys in the gym, which is definitely everybody. It's good to lean on those guys, you know, because they've been around. But again, it depends on the environment, depends on the gym. You know, it depends on even the staff sometimes, because I always find the culture of a gym a lot of the time is kind of built out from the people that run it, you know. So you guys know what we're like at this gym. Try and get involved with everybody and have some fun and teach everybody what we've got. But like, so Connor, is there resources that you guys kind of message out, you know, and you kind of, are you looking at things on Instagram or YouTube or websites, or where have you guys learned some of the stuff?
Well, online, that's during lockdown especially. There was just such a large amount of information, and there's so many people doing home workouts and all these different things, and you kind of have to like navigate, that's the word. Navigate through all these pieces of information to try and pick out parts that you like and what you need, what works out really well for you personally. But Instagram obviously has a big standards and everything like that, shows off body standards, but you can find a lot of these training programs. A lot of people sell them just to make a bit of money, but people buy them, but that's normally not what they do. It's normally they'd be on different kind of things, or because kind of getting a workout plan for you is really hard, especially as a starter, because you see all these huge guys, they've also got all their big plans, like whatever they do, how many sets and reps, and they've just got so much volume. When you're starting out, you really can't keep up with that sometimes. So it's really hard to navigate it, really.
Well, I think, you know, like, you know, talking to you guys about strength training, it's a lot of the time it's the same for different communities we have in the gym. So you guys know that we have like martial artists here, we have like strongmen here, we have aerialists here. and they all do the same. They all look at Instagram and they go, I want to try that, you know? And obviously, you know, for example, some of the martial artists, they're looking at like some of the best athletes in the world, you know, and they're looking at these amazing, you know, strength and conditioning coaches to write their programs. And we're like, cool, but you still need to learn how to do like a single leg lunge or something, you know what I mean? Because
100%.
you know, without, I guess, a fundamental level of conditioning, some of the more advanced styles of training can be, I guess, almost too much for the body, not enjoyable either, because you know, failure is part of, you know, training at a certain intensity, especially with bodybuilding and stuff. But you gotta have positive workouts sometimes as well. You don't always have to go balls to the wall and fail everything and all that kind of stuff. So I find there's some really simple ways of breaking down and triaging what's right, what's wrong. And I always start at the basics. So you know, most guys start training at the gym, like Josh said, you know, like you just want to build some muscle mass. And that's not a bad thing, because, you know, if I think about how I look at periodizing a program, you know, if I take somebody that's never trained before, they've just never seen the gym outside of, you know, whatever fitness they might do in PE, you know, which is what, like cross country and some pretty basic calisthenics type stuff, right? And that's the thing, like at an adolescent's age, you're involved in physical education. You've got team sports like football, rugby, netball, hockey, that kind of stuff. You've got cross country, which somehow PE teachers always murder, and then you've got the basic like step ups and press ups and sit ups and things like this. And obviously, you know, this whole world of this really expressive, creative, diverse exercise, you know, styles that is what I enjoy, because you know, we wanted to build a gym here where we didn't necessarily just have one style of training, and it means that whoever walks in our door, I know I'll find a system that they love.
That's what I love about this place as well. There's just so much diversity, all the different communities, like you said. There's just everything, and you can go out and try different things, and everyone here is so nice as well. You just ask them about anything and they'll give you, there's so much information kind of. And it's just so friendly here as well.
But I mean, so yeah, when I'm looking at like starting with somebody that's never exercised before, you kind of work through like stamina and stability and basic movements kind of thing. And then after that, the first thing I would look at is hypertrophy. Like the next level up is bodybuilding, you know, because sometimes you might have like a really thin, you know, person that doesn't have a lot of lean muscle. And you're like, well, if they want to be really strong for martial arts, lifting really heavy weights, calisthenics, anything that's going to have a lot of fun, sometimes the first thing you have to do is build some muscle. And at the same time, if you have, you know, it's a really cliche thing to say, but if you have maybe a woman that's I guess sensitive about the idea of doing strength training because they don't want to get big, at the same time, if they fully understand how hypertrophy works, they know how to avoid it. Whereas sometimes I hear even personal trainers, they talk about toning to say a woman that wants to tone up, and they'll talk to a guy about building some muscle, and they say the same thing. And you're like, well, you lied to one of them, right? And there should be a really simple way of helping, you know, the kind of clients, the people that want to train, to navigate that. So if I said to you guys, in terms of when we come to the gym, we're trying to create stress on the body, right? And you have all of these different tools and all this different kind of equipment and different variables, things like reps and sets and stuff like that change the results you're going to get. So if I said, what stresses do you guys think you need to hit to make a muscle grow?
Time and attention. What else to say?
There's definitely a few, but basically what I go for is not till failure every single set, obviously, because your body can't really keep up with that sometimes, and to have fun in the gym. But it's basically just kind of tearing apart that muscle fibers so they can grow back bigger and stronger, obviously. That's the basis of what I base my workouts off of.
Totally. And that's totally accurate with physiology. If a muscle kind of gets torn a little bit, like, it sounds really dramatic, I'm not talking about tearing muscles, but you know, when we create a resistance and we work against the little micro traumas in the muscle fibers, basically create inflammation, and it's that process of the muscle fibers going through inflammation that makes them then thicken, which is what hypertrophy means. It's a thickening of our muscle fibers. So we don't get more muscle fibers. That's called hyperplasia, and I think it only happens in rats and cats, as far as I know, which is wicked because we get really strong. But it doesn't happen, I don't think, in humans. So you've got this idea of creating inflammation in the muscle, like a micro tear. And time and attention is something that a lot of strength coaches talk about, but then I could grab some 8 kilogram dumbbells. And obviously I've trained for years, right? So I could go, 2 hours time and attention with not much rest with some 8 kilogram dumbbells. It's probably not going to make me bigger, right?
Yeah.
So the problem with like time and attention as a rule is it becomes quite like diverse in what that could mean to somebody. And then you start diving down the rabbit hole of like intensity, right? And so intensity is a big part of it for sure. Yeah, and like you've already mentioned, going to failure. So if I do 10 reps and I fail, then I probably got to 9 and then gave up on my 10th. And yeah, Connor's totally right. If you do that all the time, you're mentally going to blow out. Your body is probably physically going to blow out. Yeah. It's a fast route to injury. I'm not saying that I never do it, but certainly it's a more advanced level of intensity. So if you think, first off, you got to train hard enough to give your body a reason to change. And we see this all the time, right? And so we get, sometimes younger guys, sometimes older guys going, I'm a hard gainer. Yeah, I just can't make my calves grow. And then you go, well, what are you doing for your calves? And they go, I do 3 sets of 10 at the end of my workout when I'm basically tired. And you're like, so the most efficient joint in your body is your ankle. There's 9 muscles in the back of your calf, and you're wanting it to grow with 3 sets of 10 when you stand on them all day. Like, it's maybe the part of your legs that's the most used to work. So obviously, yeah, it's stupid other end of the spectrum. But like, if you look at like the GB downhill ski squad, I looked at an amazing journal article that was written in the UK Strength and Conditioning Association's journal. And I was looking at the volume, and they were like training over 40,000 kilograms on their calves in an hour. Wow. And you're like, that's not 3 sets of 10, But the reason the skiers were making their calves grow was the idea was if they had a bigger calf, when they do the massive jumps and they're slamming down and their knees are flexing, a big calf would almost act like a cushion to stop the knee hyperflexing and exploding. So it wasn't like they wanted jacked calves, but like functionally for their sport, actually making their calves bigger made a lot of sense. But then I was looking at the volumes and I was just like, that's ridiculous. Like, I wouldn't be able to walk. Exactly, you know what I mean? And so that's, my intro into what the real stresses you need to achieve to make a muscle grow are volume and fatigue. Yeah. So they're much more accurate ways than time and attention to think about how you program, because they're the only reasons your muscle will grow. And I always find it funny, like if you think about it from a physiological point of view, why does your muscle grow in diameter when you put stress through it? And it's not to look hot naked, So a thicker muscle is more resistant to damage. Well, you look at a farmer's hands and they're thick because they're working all day long, right? And so muscle fibers and connective tissue and all that kind of stuff, it's going to thicken, it's going to get stronger, so that you're more resistant to damage. And if you think about hypertrophy bodybuilding like that, you go, okay, so I've got to get my body used to being damaged at the right level so that it grows, gets bigger, gets stronger, but I don't overcook it, because obviously if in my mind, my training is there to damage my body. If I hot rod it too much and I damage my body too much, it's just going to break. And that's where you have to easy style it, start with lower volumes, start with lighter weights, work out where you're at so that you get some DOMs. You want to have that delayed onset of muscle soreness the next day, at least when you start a new program, so for the first probably week or 2, when I start a new phase of training, even now I would expect to be a bit ropey the next day. But then after, maybe weeks 3 to 6, I'd start to find the recovery a little bit easier. And that doesn't mean you're not getting results. You don't have to have DOMs to get gains. And I guess if we thought about the optimum that you'll normally read about a program being 8 weeks, that's because for 2 weeks you're in an alarm phase where your body's literally just getting used to what you're doing, you're learning the movements, you're learning what weights you should be using. And then weeks, so 1 and 2 we're getting used to it, then weeks 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those 6 weeks are actually when you're going to get the gains. Probably not when you're going to get the worst soreness. But after 8 weeks your body starts to maybe get used to those stimulus a little bit too much. You start to see less results. You start to plateau. And the problem there is if you guys don't have a new idea, you get bored. And if you get bored, you're just going to stop training. If you stop training, you stop looking cool. You know what I mean? You lose a lot of your gains, kind of thing. So then if we've got volume as one rule, and one of the most successful programs I've ever written was literally based on 6 movements. And I said, right guys, all you got to do is write down your number. So across your hour, how much did you lift? And if that number goes up every week, you'll keep getting results.
That's progressive overload as well.
Yeah. But focused on measuring your volume rather than measuring the amount you lift. So, for example, if you progressively overload and you're doing 5 sets of 10, and you're on a bench press, and you start at 60 kilo and you get 70, 80, 90, 100. Cool, your volume's gone up, right? And you've done it through progressive overload where you're challenging the intensity. So 100 kilos, way more intense than 60 kilos. So it's not just that you're going to be kind of making the muscles stronger and putting them through more volume, but there's a massive part of making sure you're giving your nervous system the right kind of shock. Because if your nervous system is stimulated, that drives your hormone system. That's going to drive hormones like testosterone and all these anabolic kind of hormones, these hormones that make you grow, and that's where intensity is really important. And that's the caveat to volume. And this is what a lot of people get confused about, because I could give Ben a squat workout, right, where he's going to squat 30 kilograms and he's going to do 20 sets of 10 reps, right? So he's done 200 squats. Good luck with 30 kilograms, right? So quick maths, what we got?
Jeez, Josh is the best at maths here. 20 times 30 times 10.
600 times 6,000.
Good, 6,000 kilos. So 6,000 kilos is a decent volume, you know what I mean, for a squat workout. But that 30 kilograms, in the grand scheme of things, is quite light for a squat. And so if we're saying your job is to damage the muscle, right? 30 kilograms is going to have a real low ceiling as to how much damage it can really create, kind of thing. And so at that kind of time and attention, that's a lot of work that you can probably knock out in a relatively short amount of time, because a lighter weight, you'd have less rest. Going to tone up loads. You got loads of time and attention. You're probably going to get stronger. You're definitely going to improve your stamina. So these are other goals. Those are great gains, but it's not necessarily like a hypertrophy or bodybuilding type gain, right? Whereas if we looked at the same kind of number, right? So we go, right, so we're going to do 120 kilo squats, and we'll do sets of 5 for 20 reps. That should be the same volume, right? But that volume was achieved at a much greater intensity because the weight was heavier, and that will create a much bigger impact on the size of the muscle, the damage of the muscle, and the muscle wanting to grow, because 120 kilos is always going to damage those muscles a lot more. So this is where like volume is really important, but sometimes people start to do really low weight, low intensity kind of workouts and then wonder why they don't get the gains. And it's like you've still got to lift enough to actually make the muscle want to damage. And again, the heavier weight is a bigger stimulus to the nervous system than the lighter weight. So you go, right, bodybuilding, making the muscle grow, volume, and part of that is building my volume through building my intensity more so than just building the reps and the sets. Reps and sets are useful tools, and what you should always think is you can't necessarily expect them all to go up. So you start at 3 sets of 10 with 50 kilos, and then you go to 4 sets of 12 with 70 kilos, and you can't expect them all to go up, especially as you get fitter. So like I say, right now you guys are starting out, you're gonna get gains from everything that you do, but when you start getting to like 200 kilo deadlifts, you're not gonna carry on ramping up the weight weekly. You know what I mean? So I've been lucky enough to speak to people like Lawrence Charley, and he trains a lot of young guys now who are aspiring strongmen, and they get to that 250 kilo mark, maybe even the 300 kilo mark, and they're like, in a year I want to get 400. And he's like, what are you talking about? 200 to 300 is not the same as 300 to 400. It's just not the same, right? So the fitter and the stronger you get, what you guys are going to have to get good at is working out which variable is the right one for me to progress right now. So should I go from 4 sets to 6? That would work, right? Should I stick to 4 sets but try and push the weight, And the easy answer is probably do the thing that you've done the least of, kind of thing. So if you've been working on pushing more weight, now keep the weight the same, just do extra sets. And if you've been pushing the sets, maybe drop the sets back down and increase the weight, because you shouldn't never necessarily expect everything to go up or even stay the same. Sometimes it's good to regress. Things like the number of sets that you do, so the quality of those sets can go up, the intensity of those sets can go up. And then you just have this really nice pattern where you go, okay, so I've got the reps that I do, I've got the volume that I do, the number of sets, I've got the weight that I do, and you just go, which one am I going to push this month? And, you know, changing your program each month is not a bad way to go. I know I said 8 weeks, but if you change your program every month, it just keeps it interesting. You know, if you're always doing bench press with a barbell, move to a dumbbell bench press, you know, and then next month come back to the bench press with the Ollie bar. And they're similar movements, but it's really good to give yourselves different exercises based around those traditional compound exercises. So when we're talking about compound exercises, rather than just like the selectorized machines you sit on, which are okay, you know, and they definitely serve their purpose, and from a low level and sometimes an elite level, because at a high end, you know, the bodybuilders that want to kind of really get huge, they use those machines because they're going to be able to lift more weight, right? And more weight, more volume, more intensity is going to be a stimulus that's going to help them get to that next level. But for me, like, especially with guys like yourselves, I'm like, okay, what's the most important thing for me to teach you? So how to squat, how to deadlift, how to lunge, how to push, how to pull. I teach that to like my 5-year-olds. That's the prime workout, Optimus Prime workout. It's very cool. but if you get that stuff right, then that transfers to so many things. It's not enough on its own, especially from like an athletic pursuit. If you're expecting the gains in strength to go to rugby or martial arts or whatever you want to do, you have to start looking at, am I training in every plane of movement? Because then you think about the exercises I've just given you: lunge, deadlift, squat, push, pull. Probably you're going to perform them all in the sagittal plane, so forward and backwards. And then you guys go and play rugby and you have to dive to the side, you have a big rotation in one of the tackles, and you have no strength in lateral or rotational movement. You haven't trained it. So this is where, you know, Josh, you're talking about jumping on the cables. They are amazing for developing rotational strength. And I think probably the early 3 years of my career as a personal trainer, I lived on a cable machine because I was like, it's the best thing in the world. It's amazing. You can do everything on it. And it was cool, and it definitely helped me build a lot of strength through the middle of my body. I think if I criticized myself for the first kind of few years of my career, I was really into the idea of building functional strength, building my strength out from the middle of my body. My core strength has always been okay. It's got better over the years. But then I probably didn't do enough of what we'd consider traditional bodybuilding. I didn't sit on benches and do bench presses and rows and shoulder presses. So for a long time, they were my weakest things. I remember when I got into competing as a strongman, when I started the Wild Training Gym, first exposure to having any access to strongman equipment. And my worst events were the statics, which made sense because I never really practiced heavy deadlifting and shoulder pressing and things like that. And then it was like the first comp was like press an 80 kilo barbell over your head for a minute, and I was like, that's probably going to be like 2 reps, like, you know. and then on the day I ended up getting like 13 or 14 out, and I was just like, okay, this is wicked, because it gives it a purpose that for me went beyond just getting bigger. And that wasn't enough of a motivator for me, you know. And so it'd be really interesting for you guys, I guess, you know, being at a gym like this, because when you start training, you start building muscle, you see your body shape change. It's wicked and well exciting. Do you know what I mean? But it gets to the point where either you don't have access to ideas that are going to reinvigorate your programming to keep your results coming. Or you just get bored, you know, of doing the same old jazz. Whereas here, that won't happen because I'm going to throw an Atlas stone at you and things like that, you know. And then we'll get you into, you know, calisthenics. And calisthenics is one of those massively underestimated and underrated styles of shaping your body. And certainly around, you know, looking at, you know, developing good abs, chest, shoulders. It's ridiculous. But it's a skill, you know. So that's why potentially more, I guess, like generic kind of commercial gyms, you're not going to see coaches bouncing around on Olympic rings and teaching you guys how to do muscle ups and things like that. And there's easy ways for you to get there, especially when you guys are arguably lighter for the size you are. So your relative strength, especially power to weight ratio, could be amazing, you know. So there's lots of ideas, but, you know, again, if we take it back to that basic idea of what's bodybuilding, what's hypertrophy, it's creating inflammation in the muscle fiber. And so you do that through volume. The other side of that kind of coin that I always talk about is fatigue. So if you think carbohydrates get converted into glycogen in your body, that's the kind of sugar essentially that our muscles utilize for fuel when we're working anaerobically. So when we're working our strength training, you know, it's not like aerobic exercise where we're burning oxygen and fat. So most of your glycogen is stored in your muscles. You get some in your liver, kind of thing. But then if you go, I'll take you guys through a high fatigue workout. Feels completely different to a high volume workout. Because the weights are normally always way lighter. But the big change is that you take away the rest. So time and attention goes through the roof. That athletic ability to get your body burning fat anaerobically, to tone, to become like more shaped, is ridiculous. But what you're really training is, if I take all the glycogen out of your muscle, so if I take you to failure, but in a relatively safe way, because you're only going to be using a light weight, what's happened is I've ripped all that glycogen out of that muscle, and I've got it to the point where it just cannot work, because there's, you know, nitrogen ions and acidosis and lactic acid and all that kind of jazz. Your body adapts, not necessarily by getting loads bigger. It will get a bit bigger whenever you're training. There's always an element of lots of different components at play. So you know, if you do a high volume workout, your endurance is going to improve. You're going to get bigger. If you do a high fatigue workout, your endurance is going to improve. You'll get a bit bigger. But they do it in different ways. And so a high fatigue workout is an amazing way, especially to kind of get going, because lightweight, loads of reps, ridiculously effective. And all those things mean that you get the reps to learn the technique. You aren't lifting massively heavy weights, so you get lots of opportunity to develop, you know, your technique without injury, kind of thing. And when you do start to push, you know, the bigger weights, you feel like you know what you're doing, because you've done so much of that exercise. And it's a really, really powerful way of making the gains you make in stamina and strength apply to sports and things like that, because you develop both ends of the continuum. You get the strength, you get the stamina, you get the tone, you get the power as well, can come from those high fatigue workouts. And then you guys have two tools. So you go high volume, reps, times by my weights, times by the number of sets that I do. If that volume goes up, I'm going to get bigger, right? The key to it is doing it in the same amount of time. So it's no good going, I did a leg session for half an hour and then I did a leg session for 90 minutes and I happened to beat my volume. Of course you did. So in, like, say, a 1 hour window, you got to lift more weight. And ideally, you got to lift the more weight across the same number of sets and reps, because that means your weight is going up and the intensity is the most powerful way of increasing your volume. So if you increase your volume with sets, and Connor, you increase your volume with reps, and Josh, you increase your volume with weight, you're going to win, because it's the most powerful way of increasing your volume. Not saying that's the only way you should do it, because we talked about the power of variety, but it's always referencing that back in your head. High fatigue workouts, you're going to get shredded. That's how you get really, really, you know, a lot of tone to your body. It's a great way of burning fat as well. But a lot of the time I find guys always focus on the volume workouts because they want to lift the big weights. So they avoid the high fatigue workouts. And then when I go through them with them, they get these new gains. And again, it's exciting and it's hideous when you're doing it because it's just burn, but they do work. You know? So it's definitely something to mix in. So if you guys just keep thinking high fatigue, high volume, you get some great results. And that high fatigue bit really is just you guys not having loads of rest. And you see it all the time. You know, the hard gainers going, oh, I just can't make my carbs grow. And they're texting, you know, somebody for 4 minutes in between their sets. And you're like, you need to bleed your carbs out to make them grow. You know? So fatigue is a big one. I've always found that of all the programs that I write, rest, so the amount of rest that you take, is the most powerful variable I have in programming, because whatever rest I give you absolutely dictates the work that you do. So if I only give you a 30-second rest, you are not going to be lifting a massively heavy weight. If I let you have a 3-minute rest, you're going to be lifting a really heavy weight. So the rest is almost the easiest way for me to identify with what that program is actually going to deliver, because it will dictate the intensity of the set and potentially the volume of the whole workout, kind of thing. So yeah, rest is one of those things that I don't think people talk about enough. But yeah, I'll put a blog up on the website, because I know that there's an article that I wrote, not really an article, but a resource for all the trainers, and it's with a personal training programming map. So if I've got a skinny guy and I've got an overweight guy and they both want to look like Brad Pitt and Troy, the trainers know how to map their training to get them, because obviously it wouldn't necessarily be the same. And within that, there's every variable in programming, so volume, fatigue, time and attention, density, rest, broken down as to why you'd mess about with them. What is that variable going to give me? So that'll probably be a relatively interesting thing for you guys to read. So training, bodybuilding, it's where you guys are at right now. It's the right level for you to be at, because after some basic movement stuff, which you would have done through being young guys at school, doing PE, doing sports. Hypertrophy is the right thing for you to be doing. After that comes strength training, which is where you drop the volume right out and you just go, how much can you lift? And it's like 3 or 5 reps. But those 3 or 5 reps are going to be ridiculously heavy. That's where you get really, really strong. Then you've got power type training, and that can be very diverse, but that's about developing explosivity. That then links into speed, which is coordinating that power to sprint or do whatever you want, boxing, things like that. And so that's where you literally have stamina and stability, hypertrophy, strength, power, speed. Go back to the bottom, do it all again. But you'll be doing it at a higher level. And I've been doing that for about 15 years and finding different tools, different activities that complement those different phases. And you don't necessarily have to go all the way through every time. You don't have to spend an equal amount of time in each of those phases because they might not relate to your main goal. But to completely forget about stability and mobility type work is crazy. So you want to do a little bit of it, even if all you want to do is become a Mr. Universe, Mr. Olympia bodybuilder. So then after training, we got to talk about nutrition. And again, it's a minefield, especially for young men. Protein shakes, supplements, what you should take, what your parents don't want you to take, and all the rest, right? So you're laughing. So in terms of, you started training at the leisure center. How quickly after joining the gym did you guys want to buy protein shakes?
Oh,
instantly.
Okay. Cool. And so, I mean, is that because you read about it, you heard about it, somebody told you about it? Why?
Oh, well, it's everywhere, honestly. On every kind of social media platform, everyone goes, oh, you need protein shakes, you need them. 100% always have to have them. So everyone always goes into the protein. You don't really know because there's so many different varieties of protein. So you got to go through them, find which one you kind of like or which one is actually the best one. And there's no real guidance on that. But there is a lot of kind of direction towards getting protein powder.
Yeah. So do you guys know how much protein you need a day?
Normally about...
I read about it was like, was it one... What was it?
A gram to a pound of body weight.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's quite a lot. So I think the NHS probably say something like 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day for active people, sports people that are training regularly, especially within more anaerobic styles of exercise for sure, like strength training. There would definitely be a justification for more like 1.5 to 2 grams. There are loads of good coaches out there that will tell you about 3-4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. And I was really lucky that I had a guy called Mike Hayer, who you guys probably won't know. He's the best sports nutritionist in our country. So he manages the England football team. He manages about 26 of the GB Olympic team. The guy's a legend. And here's me sat going, I'm gonna check all the things I think I know with you, because that's about as credible as it comes. And one of the things we start talking about, it's not so much like where you get your protein, but how much you should be having. And so I think I always like to go right back to fundamentals, physiology, right? So bodybuilders and people into strength training, they're interested in protein because it stimulates what's called MPS, muscle protein synthesis. So MPS is what stimulates your body to recover, to grow, to heal. So you go to the gym, you train, you damage your muscles. The next bit is you need it to heal. And so you go, MPS, what's the easiest way of me maximizing that signal to get your body to fully go through that muscle protein synthesis, development. And it's 20 to 25 grams of protein in a portion. So if I hit you with 20 to 25 grams of protein, your MPS spikes, which is what you want. That's how you heal. That's how you recover. That's how you want most from your training. And then simpleton me goes, well, I want to do that quite a few times through the day, right? So this is where one of my basic rules about eating every 3 hours comes in. And so I eat every 3 hours like a religion, mostly because I'm a horrible person when I'm hungry. But if I eat every 3 hours, 2 things happen. I manage my blood sugar. And if you guys don't manage your blood sugar, you're in trouble. It's why a lot of people are overweight. It's why a lot of people lose their energy towards the end of the day and they go home and they start to gorge on sweet things. So if you manage your blood sugar throughout the day, the end of the day becomes much easier. You're leaner. It's much easier to not get kind of, overweight if you're managing your blood sugar. the other side of it, really important for your recovery. And if you're eating protein every 3 hours, that's another thing that will help you manage your blood sugar, because having protein will make you not crave sugar as much, kind of thing. So then you go, okay, that's a really simple rule. Eat every 3 hours, and when you eat, ideally, you're gonna have 20 to 25 grams of protein. So you guys are probably a little bit lighter than me. I'm about 80 kilos, right? So if we take my rule of 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram body weight per day, I want 120 grams of protein a day, right? Yeah. And then we take my rule of eating every 3 hours. So if I eat every 3 hours, that's 6 times a day for me. Breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. So 6 times 20, 120. Smashed it. So if I do 6 intakes of 20 grams, I get 6 signals to my muscle protein synthesis a day. So I'm spiking that want for my body to grow, build, get stronger 6 times a day. Josh, if you eat 3 times a day, and you eat loads, you're only getting 3 spikes to that MPS signal. So who's gonna win? I'm gonna recover because I'm getting more of those signals. Yeah. And that's why having like a 50 gram portion of protein for a meal is insane. Because one, arguably your kidney can't even handle it. You know, your body can't really absorb that much. All the science, all the decent research says that after 25 grams, there's a massive falling off a cliff in terms of the protein you had. So that's what I say, 20 to 25 grams, that's the best number. It's also practical. So a chicken breast is about 20 or 25 grams. 2 eggs is about 20 grams. So it looks right on a plate, and I'm into just eating good food, you know?
Definitely.
So half the time, if you take that idea that your palm is the size of your protein intake for a meal, you're not going to go far wrong. You know, so palm size steak, palm size chicken breast, that works, you know? Okay. And then you get your 6 signals of MPS. The reason that protein shakes are so popular is that's hard to do 6 times a day. Yeah. And so easy. I wake up in the morning, I'm gonna have a smoothie, so oats, almond milk, frozen fruit, whatever jazz I can find basically, and I'll put some vegan protein in it because then I know I'm gonna get my 20 or 25 grams of protein. So sweet, 1 tick, done. Next, what am I gonna have at 9 a.m. 3 hours after I've had my first intake? 12 o'clock midday, what am I gonna have? It's gonna get me 20 or 25 grams. Yeah. And that's it. Now the problem with guys that probably get into supplements like protein shakes, I know guys that got mass gainers. So mass gainers like protein shakes that have a lot of calories in them, because obviously to get bigger muscles, you have to eat more calories than you use. You have to have a calorie surplus. So that's where you have to probably put on a little bit of fat potentially to build muscle. But they were having 4 mass gainers a day. So they were having about 4,000 calories a day in essentially shakes. The problem with that is the macros are important. Carbs, fats, proteins, that's where our energy comes from. But micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, our grandparents were right, man. You got to eat your greens, Yeah. It makes a big difference. And macronutrients, proteins, fats, carbs, they don't work on their own. You've got to have those vitamins and minerals, and that's where a lot of I guess an argument could be made for weak immune systems, weaknesses in the body, putting yourselves at a bigger risk of injury because what you're building is rubbish. You guys are studying building at college, right? If you build with rubbish materials, it's gonna fall over, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Your body's the same, I know so many people would probably treat, their sports car with more respect than they treat their body, like we have Ferraris, we just don't have the badge, the body's ridiculously clever. So to not fuel it properly is insane, especially when you guys are investing so much time in your training, right? But again, you just simplify it. You just go, okay, so 20 to 25 grams of protein per portion to get me to my 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, right? Okay. So then, if you weigh 60 kilos, you're looking at about 90 grams, right? So 5 portions of 20, sweet. The next rule, totally ridiculous and subjective and something I've completely made up, but I never have more than 2 protein shakes a day. And for me, that means that I know I've got to be disciplined enough to find 4 others that are going to give me 20 to 25 grams of protein that are food, that are colorful, that have vitamins and minerals in it, because it will give you a way better relationship with food. And exercise is something we should enjoy together. So it's wicked that you guys have joined the gym together to make it fun, because it should be. Like, exercising with people makes it better. But food's the same. So as soon as you stop enjoying your food, it's a very hard way of enjoying being active and being fit and being healthy. And that's where a lot of the time, even bodybuilders, really successful bodybuilders I meet, are sometimes really miserable about that community and that culture, and the idea that you're going to train all this time, you're going to eat really disciplined, restrictive diets to get on stage and have somebody else completely subjectively tell you whether you look good or not, right? It's like, if I turn up to a strongman competition, I win or lose because I lifted more than you or less than you. Whereas sometimes when people are building their motivation to exercise around what they look like, it's really subjective. Everybody ends up with body dysmorphia because you know what I mean? It's just like 100%. Everybody looks bigger and better than me. So where I think it's important is you exercise together, you create a narrative around your workout where you create a challenge. And so if we all trained together, we could do the same workout. We could do that high volume workout. We'd just be chasing different numbers. And it's cool, because it's about our own progression and just making sure that, whatever tangible goal, whatever metric you give yourself to measure your progress on, we're doing it in a way where it's a positive thing. I find like it's much better when it's objective. Like, I can deadlift more now than I could last year. Cool, and I haven't lost my mobility and I'm not injured. So I've done it in the right way. Did somebody else potentially progress their deadlift more than me that year? Maybe. Do you know what I mean? But there's lots of other things I'm working on. And you have to go, I don't have to be the best at everything. I can't be the best at everything. And that's where, as you guys get fitter and fitter and fitter, you're going to realize that the biggest frustration is you can't train everything at the same time. So you're not going to get bigger, stronger, fitter, faster within a phase as you get fitter. And that's where you have to become way smarter about, things like the variables we were talking about. It's like, right, I'm going to push that type of training. I'm going to work on my power because I haven't worked on my power for a long time. And you find some new kind of gains, basically. So yeah, I think fundamentals of nutrition, protein, I get it. Hopefully that idea of only having 2 protein shakes a day makes sense. And then the value in just simplifying it, going control your blood sugar, eat every 3 hours, and try and get that 20 to 25 gram portion of protein to maximize muscle protein synthesis. And everything I've just said is double-blind, placebo-tested, medical research that's foolproof. After that, realistically, you don't need a lot. I think things like creatine have been around for a long time, very well researched, and I would recommend that to anybody that's doing any type of anaerobic sport. So whether you're an MMA fighter, whether you're recreationally getting into strength training, or any type of explosive anaerobic training, it's an energy source. So our bodies create it, and that's one of the things that helps us break down chemically. We create energy very quickly using creatine. So that's where you can do really high intensity exercise, and we get it from red meat. Grass-fed red meat has about 500 times more creatine in it than ground-fed red meat, which is why you should buy good meat from a butcher's. But obviously we're not supposed to eat red meat every day. So it's, where are you going to get your creatine, right?
That's where the substitution comes in,
Yeah, totally. And again, that's one of those things that's been researched really well, but probably the commercial research isn't particularly accurate in terms of how much should you actually take. So all the best research I've ever seen bases it on 0.02 grams of creatine per kilogram body weight per day. So if I'm 80 kilos, I'm going to have about 2 grams of creatine a day. Whereas if you look at the back of the pack, it'll probably say something like 5 gram portions up to 3 times a day. Well, that's 15 grams, and I'm having 2, and it's enough. And after 30 days, you'll feel the difference in your workouts. And the nice thing about doing it in that way, there's no loading phase, there's no you've got to stop taking it phase, because it's sustainable. You've only got 2 clearance methods for creatine. So once it's in your blood, it's either going to go to your muscles or your kidneys. So if you have too much, you're going to start to bust up your kidneys. And then you look at bodybuilding. How many bodybuilders start to have problems with kidney failure and things like that? Not cool. So yeah, more isn't necessarily more, but that's where it sounds like a sales pitch. It does help when you guys get to talk to people that have done it, So I got 20 years on you guys, and I've been training for 20 years. So you get to nick everything I've learned in 20 years, because I didn't know everything I just said 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Definitely. I really wish I had it. But yeah, it makes a big difference for sure. But yeah, so quick fire round. Any last questions? Anything you want me to smash?
Yeah, well, mainly it would have been nutrition, but obviously you just rounded that basically completely off. But yeah, so I haven't got many questions.
Any good isolating bicep movements, because I've got biceps today.
I got 10-year-old girls' biceps. Honestly, you want to test any part of my body, the worst thing I got is biceps. So where did I see the best development with my biceps? I like pull-ups, wide grip for sure. Where I think a lot of people miss out on good development in their kind of biceps and the whole exercise of a chin up. So if I have my palms here, relatively wide grip, is what I find is people focus so much on getting as many reps out as they can or lifting as much weight. One of the easiest ways of getting more out of any exercise is to build the time and attention in, right? So Ben does his pull-ups and he goes 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down, right? And then you do your pull-up and you go 2 seconds up, 2 second pause at the top, 4 seconds down. You're gonna get so much more out of that, even if he's lifting more weight, with a weight belt around your waist kind of thing. Because the most effective phases in terms of activation of movement is not the shortening phase. So if we use a leg extension, because it's easy to see, my quad shortens, that's concentric. It's the weakest part of the movement, right? The strongest part of the movement is the eccentric. Whereas how often you see, and they're missing the best bit, man. They've done the hard bit. Enjoy the eccentric, but it canes. And then, leg extension is a great example, because if you do that leg extension, 1, 2, and then you hold it there, 1, 2, you will feel what I'm talking about. Your whole quad will just go pop, and then you can lower it back down nice and slowly. So in terms of, rather than an exercise to help you get more out of your biceps, work out the ranges of movement where your biceps are being challenged the most. So for example, when I get kind of my elbows below horizontal, a lot of that hold is going to become quite bicep dominant in my chin up. So that's where it makes loads of sense to get to the top and hold that bad boy and then come back down. So I'm a massive fan of building in tempo to help people progress specific muscle parts, because you can become really targeted with it.
I had a question on like gaining weight, because obviously I've been bulking for, let's say, maybe 5 months now. I started with about 52 kilo, 57, sorry. And about 63 now. And in 5 months, I feel like I could have gained more.
In you've taken 5 months of the 6 kilos on?
Yeah, about
Okay,
that.
That's okay, man. I mean, kilo a month is, the nice thing about doing it slowly like that, you're not going to get fat. You know what I mean? So,
100%,
you know what I mean? So I think the quicker you expect to put weight on, greater risk of you just putting a bit of chunder on. Likewise, it goes the other way. So if I had somebody overweight here, it was the fastest way to lose weight, and they go, I'm just going to stop eating. So yeah, but then you're going to lose a lot of muscle and bone density, which isn't going to make you look better. It's definitely going to make you feel better, right? So, sometimes having a slower approach to these things is wicked. I got to say that I was probably one of the smallest personal trainers that I knew in terms of muscle mass. So certainly until 2017, the team always joke, because when you see the pictures of me when I opened this gym in like 2016, I couldn't fill a t-shirt. Do you know what I mean? It was not good. I was strong because, like I said, I built my kind of core out from the middle. But yeah, so I wasn't a particularly big guy. In terms of, I guess, again, really interesting conversation I had with Mike Hayer, so this sports nutritionist. Eat to fuel the work. So I can say to you, eat more. Eat more is the obvious advice, right? But if you eat more, you should train more, because you want to fuel that work, if that makes sense, So as you increase the volume of your workouts, try and eat a little bit more. We've said you could probably look at having a couple of protein shakes a day, but there's a lean protein, and then there's a mass gainer, and it's just going to be a very accessible way for you to get a bit more calories in. But I don't think a kilo is an unreasonable amount of weight to put on. You could put more on. My best is probably 6 kilos in 6 weeks, and so I did that in about 2009. So that was 12-ish years ago. And honestly, it's terrible advice, but I did that on hobnobs, man. Hobnobs are magic because they're yummy, but they got carbs, fats, and proteins in them.
Everything, yeah.
And they're really cheap. So yeah, you can get about 3,000 calories for like 50p. It was like genius. But don't eat hobnobs. But increase your calories, increase your volume. And like, so for that 5 months, have you calculated your total volume? So
not really.
When you do a lower body workout, if I said how many kilos did you lift in that hour, would you be able to tell me?
No.
So that's the only thing I want you to change.
Okay.
And yeah, if you were paying me as a personal trainer, that's what I'd say to you. Because, like, so for example, my last deadlift workout, I think I did 20,800 kilograms in an hour, and that was way more than I did the previous kind of month or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So one, then you've got a way more fun way of measuring your progress. And yeah, it's not like you go, oh, I think I've put some weight on, I don't look too chubby. It's like the numbers are going up, you will get bigger. And if you start lifting more volume, you will want to eat more. And if you eat more, you get bigger. But look, I could talk all day about this, but hopefully that's been valuable for you guys. Interesting?
Oh yeah, 100%. Brilliant.
Wicked.
Yeah.
All right, well, like I said, we'll be running more and more of these family series and working through different training systems. And maybe I'll write you guys all a program after this, and then we'll come back in a couple of months and we'll all be like, jacked.
Oh yeah.
The laps out and everything. Yeah.
Wicked. All right, guys. So hopefully that was valuable for you guys listening, and yeah, another great episode of Fitness Inside Out by Wild Training. Please hit subscribe so you'll be able to check out these podcasts on YouTube and Spotify and Apple podcasts. It's on most of the major kind of podcast stations. Next time, I'm going to be talking to the team about some of the new programs we've been writing. And the interesting thing about some of these new systems is they really help us challenge some of the things that I find stop people taking on exercise, getting started, which is normally the hardest thing. So make sure you check out that podcast. There's going to be a lot of fun talking about some of these new programming concepts that we're going to be bringing to you guys.